Salutations, kindred souls. Welcome to another episode of Lux Martin Enlightenment. I'm Lux, and on this channel we talk about how wisdom, healing, and integration help you design a life that you're living and loving. Today we're going to talk about how time and choices are never wasted. Recognizing that every choice, even ones that you question or regret, contribute to your growth, and that time spent is never wasted when it teaches you the lesson you needed. We all have moments, many sometimes, where we can look back in our life and think, I should have done that differently. I made a mistake. But what if every choice, every detour, every mistake was actually practice in your ability to make a new decision, a next bigger decision? It's part of the evolution of your journey. Today we're going to explore why even choices that you regret are part of the sacred rhythm of your growth. What I'm actually going to invite you to do is to adopt a new mindset, a new belief system that every choice I make is for my betterment. It's for the development of who I am, the soul in a human carcass, and it's all a part of the journey. I'm always on the way somewhere else, and so there can be no mistakes because every choice and every moment I spent doing those things, choosing those things, led me here. And I genuinely have a fundamental belief that that is good, that is benevolent. God, the universe is working with me on this journey, and there is really no such thing as a mistake. And so I'm not inviting you to just look back on one particular decision and give yourself grace or forgiveness and try to see the beauty in what happened as a result of it. I'm inviting you to adopt a new belief system from which you carry yourself, your thinking, your existence from this point forward, in that things are always working out for me. That's not just something you say to comfort yourself. It becomes a belief system that you integrate and you live by, thus changing the way you make choices, do things, do life. And I've seen the changes in my life. And so that's why I would like to talk about it today with you, is because I see the benefits of utilizing that as a mindset, an operating system, rather than just a comforting mechanism. So firstly, we're going to examine how the myth of perfect choices is an elusive destination and an end goal that might not be quite so reachable. And I don't know if that was ever the point. Interestingly enough, I did grow up as a person who not only believed that perfection was achievable, but that it was desirable. I grew up immersing myself in the sport of gymnastics. And if you know anything about gymnastics, it is theoretically a sport of perfection. The goal is to make as few mistakes or no mistakes as if possible. And it's very much designed that way. And so regardless of whether that's good, bad, or neutral, I grew up with the fundamental cornerstone of who I am in character build, of that hard work, the desire, the grit to achieve perfection, or good choices rather, was not only doable but desirable, and that's how I should navigate my life. And someone like me tended to dabble in a little bit of the toxic end of the spectrum of that, where it caused me frustration, it caused me pain, it caused me discomfort, suffering in my pursuit of perfection. And so what I would invite you to do here is examine, are you a person that believes in perfection? Are you a person that says that perfection isn't real or that getting perfect isn't real, but are there still areas of your life where you push for it, or you believe that in that aspect of your life it's achievable or desirable? Where do you have any discrepancies within yourself, your life, or your relationships where you may secretly be desiring perfection, even though you might say you don't? Again, perfection is kind of an elusive destination, because once we often achieve, even if we can manage to achieve a point, a decision, a lifestyle, a thing that we deem as perfect, what we often find is that it's less satisfying than what we dreamed of what it would be once we got there, as well as it's so easy to change our minds on the way, or even once we've reached said perfection, of what is perfection to me? If this doesn't feel the way I thought it should feel, or if this doesn't feel like an end all be all end point of perfection, what am I doing? What else is perfection, you know? And so it ends up leading us down this never-ending, frustrating rabbit hole of the pursuit of perfection. And quite honestly, I've realized that that's just not an ideal way to live your lifestyle, because there are often challenges and struggle and unnecessary suffering that comes with that. Sorry about the yard work happening in the background, but I am not doing another take of this. So here we go. Now we're going to move on to examining. This is just a moment where I try to churn up, get your wheels turning about real examples of where you've examined choices or spaces of time in your life that you regret, second guess, deem as I could have, should have done differently. And the main three areas where we can get this ball rolling, so to speak, in terms of where you might be able to examine this in your own life is relationships, connections, letting someone go too soon, staying with someone too long, things that you said or didn't say to someone, ways that you navigated relationships, whether they were intimately, with family, workplace, ways that you navigated relationships that needed room for expansion, understanding where what we deemed as mistakes in relationships teach us boundaries and discernment, for the most part, of where we start and end and what we need and don't need and to be in connection with someone else. Another huge one is career moves. All of us adulting humans, in order to function in this 3D world, are encouraged to do career, are encouraged to do something productive, be a productive member of society in terms of what you want to do with your life, what you want to do with income, and understanding how taking a job that wasn't ideal, or maybe only lasted a season or ended up not being the right fit for you, wasn't a waste of time or resources, or wasn't the right fit for you. It was you developing skill sets, resilience, and most importantly, networking. I very much can appreciate in my own life how the transition over the last few years of me examining different careers has led to the most beautiful, stumbling upon the most serendipitous meeting of new connections that I wouldn't have otherwise had if I would have stayed in the trajectory of what I always thought I should have been doing. And so I can very much step back and appreciate how the navigating of career moves has offered me more gifts than challenges. And lastly, I would encourage you to examine how even just your 24-hour or 7-day cycles of decision making, where you might examine what you call a misstep, like overcommitting to things, or trying to cram a certain form of time management in your schedule that didn't work out the way you should have, or the way you thought it should have, and now you've got to bail on some things, or trudge through too many things at once, or follow through on a commitment you made that you didn't really want to, but you do. And so you learn the discernment of what you would like to do differently going forward. So there's relationships, there's connections, there's what we do with our adult human lives, such as career, and then there's even just our 24-hour cycles of existence, of choices that, could have done that better, could have done that differently, where we notice the moments of awareness where we're being invited to reflect on our choices. So reflection is the next thing we're going to dive into in this mindset shift that I'm inviting you to practice with me, where we're going to dig deep into the aspect of reflection, in the fact that reflection is a skill you develop. We've all heard the phrase hindsight is 2020. However, that is actually a skill. Hindsight being 2020 and being able to reflect on what happened and why is a skill you develop. It's not a natural tool that everyone has or has the ability to do. And that's really challenging for some people, to be able to look back on a phase of their life or a decision they made and not still be incredibly emotional about it, or still be in incredible amounts of shame or regret about it. I will encourage you that sometimes we need that time and space from a decision in order to reach a point of neutrality, because sometimes we are unable to reflect upon the lessons or the wisdom or the gifts of what a decision or a space of time did for us, when we are still too emotionally charged to examine it and to examine the possibility that gifts and lessons reside in that choice or that time space moment. So if you're in a place where something is still too emotional for you to look back upon and see the wisdom or glean the wisdom from that, it's okay. Give yourself forgiveness and acceptance for the fact that that's where you are right now, and that at some point in your journey, you very likely will get to a place where you can look back on that moment or that decision from a place of neutrality and reflect and ask yourself, what did I learn? What happened? What did that happening do to change my life or the trajectory of where I am now? What gifts can I glean from that time space moment? And then I will invite you to notice how there is hindsight is 2020. There's deep space reflection, as there is also the ability to develop the skill of real-time reflection or near real-time reflection. It's a skill to be able to examine, to stay present enough to examine your choices as they're happening and understanding very quickly what it's prompting in you, whether it's at a soul level, a nervous system level, how it's affecting you and others around you. Noticing that faster than 5 years ago is a skill we develop, and it allows us to pivot a little smoother and a little faster in noticing quicker what our choices are prompting in us and what the results of our choices and our time used are prompting in us to change or develop or to become aware of. So I would encourage you to appreciate and develop the duality of deep past historical reflection as well as real-time reflection of your choices and the way you use your time. And understanding that in this reflection, we are essentially surrendering to the need to judge our past decisions, and we're surrendering and accepting to the fact that we are doing this dance with God, the universe, that there is no such thing as a mistake. There is only the ability to reflect, develop, integrate, and move on and make new choices consciously. And so in this reflection, we are deepening our connection with God and our ability to appreciate that that's the way it works, for lack of a more sophisticated term or phrase, and that we are balancing both the pursuit of where we want to go and where we think God is calling us, leading us, spurring us on to be, as well as acceptance for what was and acceptance for what is right now. And it takes time to develop appreciation and respect and beauty for that's the way we're doing this dance with God, the universe, your higher self, all of the things, yeah? And so reflection is the invitation to not only deepen that relationship and that ability in yourself, but those skill sets to strengthen and hone in on this new life, this new mindset shift we're making on accepting and respecting that time and decisions are never mistakes or never wastes. So now we're going to move on into the integration portion of this, which is the point of it all, which is the tool, the walk-away tool you're going to have from this episode today. Quite honestly, whether you want to write it down or not and physically journal it, not relevant. If that helps you, great, do it. If getting in a space of writing reflection helps you reflect more thoroughly and more deeply, beautiful. If you can talk it out with yourself or with someone else, beautiful, do that too. But in actuality, the reflection portion becomes the integration. So now we're going to shift the reflection into integration by examining via journaling or self-thought or conversation of a choice you made that you might attach the word regret to, and write down or consider 3 lessons it gave you. Taking something you did in terms of a career choice. Start with that because that can be a little neutral, a little faster. In understanding why you chose to do what you did in a workplace, in a career choice, and what lessons it gave you in those choices, whether it was who you came into connection with. People is a great lesson something can give you. Who you become is a great lesson something can give you. Unfortunately, pain is a great teacher. What pain did you experience and what did that fuel you to do differently? Examining the lessons. Something I would like to put a little quick caveat in while we're talking about this integration portion is that if you feel a little trigger or a little charge around the word or the phrase lessons learned, to me, in my experience, because I used to believe that, I used to be really frustrated when people would suggest, oh, it's a journey, or what lessons could you take away from this? That triggering in me prompted me to take a little bit of a step back and dig deeper in it. What do I find so irritating about having to learn the lessons? And in my experience, it was because I was so desperate. I was in such desire and pursuit to get to an end destination, such as perfection, or such as getting it right, or such as good choices, that I was frustrated with myself at the concept of mistakes, at the concept of my humanity. And that was something that I needed to spend more time and space with, in acceptance that you're a soul in a human carcass and there's no getting around that. And that's okay. And that's a beautiful thing. And so I would just encourage you, as we do this development of integration, of if the word or the concept of lessons learned is still charging for you, I would invite you to give yourself a little more grace and space for that phrase in itself of, what do I need to examine within me so that I can look back on a moment or a time space or a choice that I made that I'm second guessing or regretting? And how can I even do the concept of reflection in neutrality? Because maybe at this point in time you can't. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that there's some tension within you going on about why you're here, why you should have to learn lessons, why those lessons, you know what I mean? And so without going into too much of a rabbit hole there, I would invite you to observe if learning the lessons is a neutral phrase to you. And if it's not, how can we get there? Yeah. But moving forward, let's say you are in a place where you can look back at a decision with neutrality, or a phase of your life with neutrality, and accept that there are lessons to be learned from it. Can you find three? Can you find three lessons from that choice or time space? The next part is the observing and the reflecting on how that experience prepared you for current or future decisions. So this is where it becomes a tool rather than just reflection. I can personally say, in regards especially, the most poignant place where this is relevant to me is in my twin flame journey, about how every cycle I went through with my person was an observation and an integration and an opportunity to observe when I would need to make a new choice. So as much as I felt anguish and frustration and so much emotion over the cycles we did and all of the things that came with them, I started to develop my ability to see how this particular cycle empowered me or prepared me to make a different choice in this cycle. And then a shift happened. Even if it was a very small 1% shift, my ability to use the cycle and reflect on it and use it for the preparation for a new choice made in another cycle became more of an empowering tool for me, rather than the frustration of feeling stuck in cycles, or the resentment I had for myself and my person for the amount of cycles and the pain and the struggles that went through the cycles. Yeah. So you're using it as a tool. It's now a tool in your toolbox of understanding how the reflection is now a tool for how God is preparing you to make different decisions, because your awareness and your ability to discern what you do and don't want going forward is the tool to make a new future decision. It's the strength within you to make a new decision. And lastly, we're going to integrate this from the practice of the shift from should've to what did I learn and who am I now? No more should'ves. Should is a very difficult word to remove from your vocabulary, but it is so helpful. I will say that in my real-time existence, in my experience, shifting away from should've shifts me out of victim mentality, out of feeling defeated, out of feeling helpless, and it shifts me into, when I ask, who am I now, and what did I learn, and what do I have now? It's super empowering. It's super encouraging. It gives me my sovereignty back. It gives me my power to make new decisions going forward, regardless of what did or did not happen. And I will say there, another tiny little caveat here is that when you are building the practice of shifting from should've to what do I have now, who am I now, that can be a little uncomfortable. We often, in our lower states of human existence, for lack of a better phrase, we often repeat cycles and dysfunctional patterns because even that dysfunction is more comfortable than the opportunity to change and shift. And the open space and the ability to shift can be uncomfortable for people's nervous systems, and it can be scary, for lack of a better word. So I would love to give anyone a hug out there who needs a little pat on the back and a little encouragement to keep going. If the actual shift concept of leaving the should have space and going into the who am I now and what do I have now causes you some discomfort, because you're literally shifting out of victim mentality and helplessness to empowerment. And that is hard for people to do. That is a tool, that is a skill in itself. That is a human existence shift in itself, and it's a hard one. So if you're there and you're noticing that, more power to you. Great job for being aware of it, and don't stop just because it's uncomfortable. Yeah? That's one thing I'm going to tell you you should or should not do. Don't stop just because it's uncomfortable to shift out of the should-haves and into the look at me now, you know? And so the last thing I want to offer you in some practical application is using affirmations, whether you have to write them down, put them in your phone. Remind yourself, it's just a hair of this fake it till you make it concept, as much as I don't love that, where I'm encouraging you to say these things to yourself, to regularly say to yourself, I get to observe the lessons. I get to shift out of should-haves to look at who I am now. Because it's not going to feel that natural at first. It's not going to feel good at first, nor is it going to feel beneficial, empowering, natural, beautiful. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle bus. And so this is where using the affirmations, using the journaling, using the daily reminders of how you're shifting a belief set takes just a little bit of fake it till you make it kind of practice. Because when we're shifting something as monumental as a fundamental belief system that no choice I made was a mistake and no time I used was wasted, that's a big shift. It's a big shift. And it's going to take some practice before it gets natural and before you become more aware of doing it in real time. So I would encourage you to do the reflection, do the journaling, do the integration work every day, even if it's just a little bit of a struggle, because it can and will get easier. I've seen me do it. Yeah. So in closing reflection, I want to offer this really powerful statement to you. Every choice, even the ones you second guess or regret, is an opportunity to grow, practice, and build the wisdom your future self will rely on. Time is never wasted, and choices are never mistakes. When you extract the lesson, honor the experience, cherish who you've become because of it, and move forward consciously. Powerful right there. So, in closing, thank you for listening today. Thank you for being here, and I hope that if this helped you or could help someone you know, that you would share my channel, like, subscribe, spread it around a little bit, yeah? Keep seeking, keep softening, keep showing up, and remember the light you're looking for is the light you already are. Take care.